So it's really common for partners of dismissive avoidance to feel unappreciated. And in this video, I wanted to really cover what that's made up of and what we can do about that. And also when it's appropriate to realize that, hey, this is maybe an unhealthy situation versus when it's appropriate to realize, hey, there's just a lack of communication that when leveraged correctly could produce tremendous results in a different way that could make me feel appreciated in the relationship. So first of all, I'm going to cover, why the dismissive avoidant doesn't appreciate you, but I'm going to cover this from a perspective of so many different questions I've had recently about this, so we can see sort of the insight into what's happening at a root cause level. So, reason number one that this happens is because dismissive avoidants don't often realize that they are not expressing enough appreciation. Dismissive avoidants are not usually very vulnerable, as you probably know if you've been watching this channel, and actually fear vulnerability. And dismissive avoidants are often operating from this space of thinking that everybody's kind of just out to meet their own needs. And so they don't realize that things like words of affirmation, expressing appreciation, expressing validation or reassurance, these different things that are healthy ingredients to have in a securely attached relationship go such a long way. And I can't tell you how many conversations I had with DAs in my practice where they would say, well, my partner should know I appreciate them. Like I wouldn't be with them if I didn't appreciate them, or variations of exactly that. And what I would teach dismissive avoidance is like, hey, I see that. I see that from your end, you appreciate them and you're really clear about them, and that you show that you appreciate them by being with them in the relationship. And that's your way of demonstrating that you're there. But that's often not enough. And it feels nice to be appreciated. It's a healthy part of co-regulation, of us being able to express kindness and love and gratitude towards each other. And so a lot of times dismissive avoidants have to sort of make it a conscious thing to express appreciation more in the relationships as a whole. Reason number two is that dismissive avoidants don't often communicate through their words. They usually communicate through their actions. And it's not a very great way of communicating, quite honestly, because it can lead for a lot of confusion. It's like, leaving people to read between the lines all the time, but they just don't have a lot of healthy modeling for communication that's direct. And so dismissive avoidance, again, may even be trying to express appreciation through things like acts of service, like doing something nice back. And that may be a token of their appreciation. And that might be clear for them on their to them on their inside world, but it can be easily overlooked or not received by somebody else who either doesn't have a similar love language or doesn't realize and is looking for some kind of like affirmative words to show appreciation. Reason number three is that dismissive avoidants struggle to co-regulate. Okay. So dismissive avoidants struggle to feel like they can regulate while in the presence or company of others. And this leads them to feel like in order to re-regulate or restabilize themselves, that has to be done on their own, in their own time. And this can lead them to either wanting to take too much space in relationships or seeming like they are kind of hungering for that time alone in relationships, or fearing being vulnerable and opening up and spending time trying to co-regulate in relationships, which can leave somebody feeling dismissed or not important, which obviously leaves somebody with a taste in their mouth of feeling like they're not being appreciated. And so part of what the DA has to work on at a root level is proper co-regulation and vulnerability exposure work, so that they can feel like they can regulate around others and they can appreciate that time that they're spending with others, rather than feeling like they're still in survival mode while in the company of other individuals. And by the way, if you want to do a deep dive into just regulation work as a whole, as a dismissive avoidant or as any other attachment style, every insecure attachment style really needs to be able to do this work to become secure. I have a course, it's super easy. It's like 1 hour long, and it will give you really powerful habits and tools and an understanding of nervous system regulation work. You can check it out for free for 7 days using the link below. It's all about somatic processing and nervous system regulation work. And it just helps you take out like a little tangible habit you can add every day that will help you self-soothe better, re-regulate better, and be able to do that well alone or in the company of others. So anyways, I'll put that link down below. Another big reason that dismissive avoidants don't seem to appreciate some people sometimes is because they are often not expressing their needs. So what happens all the time is, like, let's say an anxious person's with a dismissive avoidant. An anxious person may be meeting needs in the relationship for their DA loved one that they would need, but not understanding that, hey, Just because I would need this doesn't mean this is what my partner needs. And so sometimes we all tend to like project from our perception. We think people are as we are, but dismissive avoidants often have very unique needs to APs or FAs. And so oftentimes somebody's pouring into the relationship, but they're pouring into the wrong cups, right? They're pouring into the wrong buckets of needs. And so dismissive avoidants may not actually be appreciating those things as much because they're not feeling like they're understood in terms of what they actually need. But at its root, it's because they are not expressing what they actually need. So it's another really important thing to pay attention to. And last but not least, and then I'll talk about what we can do if we're on the receiving end. But, point number 5 here is dismissive avoidance as well. They tend to constantly be operating in their feelings minus their fears. So they tend to, be activated about vulnerability and be afraid of being trapped or helpless or powerless if they feel too vulnerable, or being shamed if they're too vulnerable. So sometimes when they're in their fear-based mode, we can't be appreciative of things when we're in fear, right? Those are like almost mutually exclusive states, gratitude and fear. And so if DAs are operating that way because of past traumas that are kind of bleeding into their present and current circumstances, and what ends up taking place is somebody feels really unappreciated on the receiving end. And the DA is in this sort of low level sympathetic nervous system state, like fight or flight mode all the time. And obviously when you're feeling that way, you don't express appreciation. I just wanted to pop in here and let you know we are doing a 7-day free trial to the All Access Membership Pass at PDS, which means you get access to literally everything inside of the school. And this includes the 4 live webinars I do with our students every single week. And on top of that, you get access to all of our different courses. We have over 55 different courses on relationships, communication, boundaries, emotional mastery, guilt and shame, learning your needs, so many different facets that are really important to master our lives and feel really good about our lives going forward. And last but not least, there's a daily community event. We have trained facilitators and coaches who are in there doing that work, showing up to support you on your journey every single day. Please join me on the other side. Come check it out. See if it's a fit for you. I'd love to see you there. Go ahead and sign up by clicking the link in the description box below. So if you're on the receiving end of this, number 1, it's really important to discuss it, to let your DA loved one know that appreciation is important to you. You want to feel acknowledged. You want your work and efforts to be seen in the relationship, and talk about how like words of affirmation may be a love language, for example. Number 2, make sure you see this need through, talk about it, share about it, remind the person, and then you're going to reach this sort of precipice where the person either puts the effort in or does not. And the vast majority of the time when we communicate clearly, specifically, and consistently, we're programming somebody to learn about us and what we need, right? Because people have their preconceived ideas and notions about relationships relative to their programming. But when we share using those 3 methodologies, when we are clear, we really paint a picture, and we're consistent, and we're feeling like we're comfortable to really open up and share and be persistent about seeing our needs through. And when we're like kind about the way we're communicating and healthy, like when we're touching all those facets, what ends up happening is the vast majority of the time that other person shows up and pours in and does the work. But there's also going to be times where people don't. And at that point, if you reach that precipice where like you're communicating your needs, they're not being met, you're doing it properly, you're empowering and growing yourself because you're showing up for your needs and you're learning healthy communication tools, but it's like they're just falling on deaf ears and nothing changes. That's when it's time to reconsider being in the relationship, right? Because if you're unfulfilled and then you're expressing and you're trying to put in the work and nothing's changing, well, now you know that this is probably not going to change if, despite your efforts, it hasn't been changing. So I always advise people at that point to set a deadline. Like, I'll try really hard to work on this relationship for 1 month or for 3 months. That deadline should be relative to like how long you've been in the relationship and what commitments. Like, obviously, if you've been dating somebody for 4 weeks, that deadline might be a week, rather than if you've been dating somebody for 25 years and you are married and have children and a mortgage together, you might want to really put effort in for 6 months to a year, right? So we have to sort of, you set that deadline according to our own individual situations, pour in, do that work, share, communicate in a healthy way, lead by example. And if we're just not seeing that shift or turn around, that's when it's time to reconsider the relationship itself. So I hope this makes a lot of sense to you. Thank you so much for watching and for being here. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed this, if you enjoy the content. I put out literally a daily video about dating, relationships, attachment, the subconscious mind, all these different things. And I will see you in the next video.